My guest on this episode talks about the quiet revolutions that shape a life, from daring to create with her own hands to daring to speak hard truths in spaces not built to welcome them. She shares how courage, rooted in deep values and fierce compassion, fuels her vision for a world where public health uplifts every community and where bold, authentic leadership lights the way forward. You're listening to the Courageous Public Health Podcast, Episode 6. To all the courageous Black, Indigenous, and women of color leading in public health, this podcast is your space to turn up the volume on your courage. This space centers your voice. This space celebrates your passion. This space amplifies your courage. My role? To listen, to amplify, and to stand with you in the fight for equity. My name is Dr. Christy McClamrock. I'm an epidemiologist, consultant, the founder and CEO of Courageous Public Health, and the host of the Courageous Public Health Podcast. Each week, I have unfiltered conversations with BIPOC women in public health about the challenges you face, the power you hold, and your vision for the future. We talk about the authenticity, vulnerability, and courage that you bring, not just to public health, but to every part of your lives. Because courage is about action, even in fear. It's about taking up space, leading unapologetically, refusing to be erased, and knowing you never have to do it alone. If you're ready to turn up the volume on your courage, if you're ready to take up space, if you're ready to smash the racist, patriarchal, cisnormative, heteronormative, ableist, capitalistic systems, then let's dive into this brand new episode. Bronwyn Lucas is the Deputy Director of Programs and Services at the Center for Black Health and Equity, a national nonprofit dedicated to eliminating health disparities. In this role, she collaborates closely with the Executive Director to shape the organization's strategic vision, develop programmatic policies, and oversee the implementation of all initiatives. Lucas holds a Master of Public Health, MPH, in Maternal and Child Health from the Gillings School of Global Public Health at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. With over 20 years of experience advancing public health equity, she has worked across local, state, national, and international levels on critical issues such as women's health, economic justice, youth empowerment, policy and systems change, leadership development, and food justice. She has also held various leadership roles in the nonprofit sector, including founder, executive director, board chair, and consultant. Recently embracing life as an empty nester, Lucas has taken on a new role as a certified guardian ad litem court advocate in the 10th Judicial District Court of Wake County, advocating for the best interests of children in the legal system. In her free time, she enjoys painting, traveling, visiting the beach, and spending time with family and friends. Let's connect my conversation with Bronwyn Lucas right now. Hi, I want to welcome Bronwyn to the podcast today. How are you, Bronwyn?
I am great, Christy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here and also to reconnect with you. It's been a little while since we've chatted, so it's good to see you. Why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Bronwyn Lucas. I have a master's of public health, and ironically, Christy and I share our alma mater. We went at different times, but University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So I was at the Gillings School of Public Health, graduated in 2000. So I've been doing public health work for about 25 years, both in North Carolina where I live, but also national and some international work as well. Focus mostly on systemic change, racial equity, women and children's health.
Nice. Yeah, go Tar Heels.
Right.
And we didn't graduate. I graduated not too long after you did. So we're pretty close. We're pretty close. All right. Well, let's just jump right in. I want to start by talking a little bit about courage. So just to remind everyone that bravery is taking action without fear, while courage is taking action despite fear. I would love to hear from you about some experiences from your professional life or your personal life where you have acted courageously.
Yeah, thank you. What an important topic right now, particularly when during a time where it's hard to display courage, but during a time where now more than ever, we need leaders who are courageous and who can take a stand. So thank you for that question. I'm actually going to talk about a couple examples from my personal life. So
Great.
About 2 years ago, I turned 50, and right around that time, I became an empty nester. So my children grew up, left the house. They were on their own. It was my husband and I, turned 50, and I started therapy, particularly because I wanted to really spend some time envisioning what the next chapter of my life was going to look like. And I knew that if I didn't have a vision for it, I couldn't make it a reality. And I didn't have a vision, and I'm still working on that vision. So I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. But a couple things that therapy showed me. One of them was I'm a perfectionist, and that I don't try new things and different things unless I know I'm going to be really good at it and excel at it. And, through that talking with my therapist, I realized that that's really limiting me to the things that I, open myself up to. So I started painting, and it has been transformational in so many ways. I am not an artistic person. I can draw a house with a square box and a triangle on top. But I started painting, and through painting, I realized that you could make mistakes. There is no perfection. If I messed something up, I would blend two colors and turn it into something else. I could create things that maybe I didn't start off thinking I was going to create this thing, but it transformed into something else. And it's absolutely okay. And it's beautiful. And so just that really breaking down the perfection was really important for me. But then also just the mental health therapy from painting. I would get lost for hours, and I still get lost for hours. Sometimes I'll be painting with my my earbuds in, listening to music, and I'll look up and it's 3 a.m. and I've just been, it's very therapeutic. So painting for sure has been something for me that, although it kind of sounds silly, it was really like a courageous act to try something new. And then also doing things like this, like this is my second podcast I've ever been on, and I'm doing another one at the end of the month. And this is out of my comfort zone as well. So really just, as I turned 50, I'm opening myself up to try different things, try new things. And it's okay if I'm not great at all of them, right? It's about the experience. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's so much that I can relate to in what you said. I am 51, so I definitely remember turning 50. It's not that long ago. Mm-hmm. And like getting into the vision, empty nester, and then it's like, well, what do I want to do?
Right.
What do I want to do now?
It's funny because when you're in the thick of it with kids, I felt like I had all these ideas and passions, and there was so much I wanted to do, but I didn't have the time to do it. And now that I have all the time in the world, I have the resources, I can't remember what those things are. Right. And so, it's really interesting. I also started, I'm proud to say I'm a guardian ad litem. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but I work with the court system here in my county. I'm court appointed, and I advocate for children that are have been removed from their homes. And so I went through a pretty intense 6-week training, a lot of work, classes every week, assignments. I said, I feel like I'm in law school again. And was sworn in about a month ago, and I'm working with my first family now. And it is just, it's just amazing, scary, wonderful, all of the feelings. But it's so important because, the biological mom has their attorney, the biological dad has their attorney, the county has their attorney, their social workers. And my role is particularly to advocate for what's in the best interest of the children. So it's a lot of visiting with the children, meeting with their healthcare providers, getting their school records, and writing up lots of reports and recommendations, and being in court. So that's another interesting thing that I started. I felt like I didn't have much experience with the judicial system, thank God, personally, but also just in my professional role in public health. I feel like I worked in lots of systems, but not in the judicial system. And so I was curious to kind of see what it was like on the inside. And, defending children has always been my heartstring. So that's another thing that's taken up a lot of my time recently as well.
It's such a generous and compassionate way for you to spend some of that newfound time.
My husband says, "But we are not adopting. Just get don't we're not gonna become a foster family. We finally got the kids out the house." So but it's they're precious, and it's courageous work because it's very emotional. It's very layered. It's very there's a lot of unpacking that I have to do that has to happen on my end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes it's about being courageous about something that's work related or something that, but a lot of times it's like being courageous just around our emotions, right? And expressing our emotions and feeling our emotions and, like letting our emotions take up space as well. Yeah. That's really great. And, it's funny, I did go through kind of a painting phase as well. I had the same perfectionist tendencies. I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that. And I had this story in my head that I'm a math person. I'm not an artistic person. I'm a math person. And, I started painting, and I actually had to make a real effort to stop saying I'm not artistic.
Right.
It's like now I get to say, oh yeah, I'm a math person and I'm an artistic person.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would always say I'm not creative, but I don't say that anymore.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, you talk about rethinking like who you want to be for the next half decade. It's like, yeah. That's really lovely. I love all of it. So, courage is not just about taking action despite fear, right? It's about claiming and expressing your power, especially in spaces that may not welcome it. And so I'm really curious about how you express and embody your power as a woman of color doing the work of public health. I'd love to hear about that.
It's a really good question. I think it's changed over the years, right? As I've changed, as I've grown in confidence and my leadership. But I think since I started, again, my public health career in 2000, I've often found myself in spaces where I'm the only one. So I'm either the only woman, I'm the youngest one in the room, I'm the only person of color. And to be in those spaces requires confidence. And that confidence can sometimes be viewed as a threat to some that are in the room. I have always been someone that speaks my mind. I am firmly rooted in my values, and I speak straight. I'm uncompromising in my values. And so, I've been told that I'm too direct. I'm also a big thinker, a dreamer. So I've been told that, that'll never happen, that'll never work. But despite hearing those things and being told I can't, I still do. And from that, I've seen some incredible successes. I founded a nonprofit in 2007 and served as executive director with that organization. It was incredible. But I've also been removed from past jobs from executive leadership teams because of that, because of me being confident and speaking my mind and not wavering on those values. And so, while it's sometimes that confidence has removed me, other times it's opened doors, but I can't. There's something inside me that won't let me stay in places where I'm not, where the values are not aligned. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So my current role, I currently work as the deputy director for the Center for Black Health and Equity. And I feel like I've found my place. I'm able to show up every day as my authentic self. And that's really helped with my confidence as well, feeling valued, feeling respected, feeling, not being told no. And so, so there's some confidence there. And I wrote this down because I wanted to share this quote by Audre Lorde that I absolutely love. And it's, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. And that's sort of something that I live by, that it's hard to have fear and be afraid when, your values are so strong and they're telling you that this has to be said or this has to be done. So it's more about values than fear.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think confidence as a value, it's not necessarily something that people always think about, but it goes along, right, with authenticity and honesty and connection, and I mean all of the things that I think a lot of us really care about. And I love that you said that it's actually confidence is in you, and you actually can't not be that person. And I'm starting to feel like that as well. I think that's, I don't know if that's something that, comes with age or, just experience, but I could really relate to that.
I think I don't know if I was born that way, but I was raised by a very strong mother who instilled that confidence in my sister and I both. And my mom's she doesn't take any BS. She speaks, straight, and she's very determined, very independent. And so I was raised in that way. And, I think that it's just always, been, I think it's always been there. And there's examples from, elementary school through high school where I've displayed leadership and dared to think and do the impossible, for better or for worse. Right.
Yep. Actually, now that you say that, I think I've probably always had it in me as well. And it's just been a little bit easier to access and to not care so much what other people think.
Yeah.
And, be our full glorious selves with all the confidence that we.
Something happens when you turn 50. I don't know what it is, but it's just like you don't have time for, it's just you don't have time for all the extra anymore.
Yeah, and there's a lot of extra.
There's a lot. There is a lot.
Yeah. So, great quote by Audre Lorde. That's really what this podcast is all about. So can you talk at all about some of the challenges that you've faced in doing what you've done, and sort of what strategies have helped you navigate those challenges? I mean, it sounds like some of it is that you've had this in you, which certainly has helped. It sounds like that's been part of your journey, but I don't know if you have any specific challenges that you've navigated.
Oh gosh. Well, I worked at a nonprofit that was about economic development and in the South, and refused to acknowledge the role of the past and the racial injustices that have created the economic disadvantages in the South. And I spent years and years and years advocating for, this framing it in this way as with a racial equity framework. And, at the end of the day, I think they weren't willing to do that. And I wasn't willing to stay in a place where, I don't even know how to talk about economic development without talking about race. To me, they're so intertwined. So, I just had, we had to part ways because it's just, again, that misalignment of values. And so I think really that's sort of how I handle the challenges, I think, is just, I if it doesn't feel right, if I try, I hang in there, I try to, from the inside, push that change. And if it's not going to happen at a certain point, then I just have to walk away and bring my passion and my values somewhere else. So that's essentially, I think, how I've handled it in the past.
Yeah, that's about having clear boundaries and setting clear limits. And I think that's so important in the work that we do. Yeah. So I appreciate that in that case. Yes. How can you talk about economics in the South and not talk about race? You can't.
You can't.
No, you can't. Yeah. So I really appreciate everything you've shared about courage and your power. And I'd love to look ahead with you. So what is your, and you talked about vision actually in the beginning, and wanting to really have a better sense of your vision. So what is your vision for the future, Bronwyn? And, it can be in terms of public health. It can be in terms of BIPOC communities, how you see BIPOC women shaping these futures. And also, what is your personal vision for your own future as a biracial woman?
Great question. And one that I've really been thinking about a lot lately, given this administration's attack on public health and the dismantling of public health critical infrastructure programs, people. When I was in high school, I didn't know what public health was. I think a lot of people, adults today, don't understand what public health is. I think that, they don't understand that it's everything from the water that you drink being safe and the roads that you travel on. And so I think, at the core, to me, public health is racial equity. And I think in this country, there's a split between this way of thinking of individual responsibility and sort of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, or if you have this issue, you caused it, versus this collective responsibility that, to me, public health is, collective responsibility. And I think right now public health has a communication problem. And, that because we worked together during COVID on some of the, misinformation, distrust, disinformation that was going around. Now we've got the lack of science, RFK Jr., heading things off and, framing a lack of science. But so I think public health has a communication problem that I think in the future, if we are to survive, we need to do something about it. I've heard it explained as, it's like the antivirus system running in the back of your computer that, you don't even know it's there until something goes wrong. And then, and we saw this with COVID. And unfortunately that brought public health to light in some people's eyes in a not favorable way. So I think, vision for the future, I think if public health is to survive, we need to work on, communicating what it is, who we are. And I think that in most spaces, I believe that women really are the future, and leadership by women in all realms is critical. Also, I think, having BIPOC leadership is going to be critical. I think, I talked about not knowing what public health was in high school, but really this pipeline needs to be built out for public health. So we need to get people excited about public health. And, another big part, I think, particularly for BIPOC communities, is this idea of community engagement and civic engagement, which to me are components of public health, is really helping communities understand their community, see the issues, the problems, understand how they can be change makers and how they can advocate for, policy, systems, and environmental changes in their communities that impact them. And I think that's, in doing that, people become empowered, right? So, and that can be applied to so many things in life. Once you realize, that you have agency in your community, you know how to do the messaging, who the decision makers are. That can be really, really empowering. So I think, we need to mobilize the masses to really demand the changes that we want to see in our communities. So I think, that's a lot. I think that's probably my vision for public health in the future. And I think my personal vision is, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out. I had the opportunity in September to go to this amazing all women's camp for women at all different stages and ages of life, but it was mid-career and older. So, from 40 up to 80 or 90. And it was an overnight camp, and it was called Camp Powerment, and it was in the Poconos, and it was just transformational. And I really went there to try to figure out what was next for me, what was in store in my future. And what I learned there is that I don't have to figure it out right now, like right today. Like, I had just turned 50, and the next month I went to this camp, and I had to figure it out. Who am I going to be? What am I going to do? And it was like, I don't have to figure it all out right now. And so I'm okay with sort of the not knowing and sort of bits and pieces at a time. So the guardian ad litem volunteer role that I've taken on is where it is, what it is now. But I don't know, in 5 years, I don't know what it will look like, what my future will hold. So I'm still trying to figure out the personal.
I mean, I love that you are comfortable with not knowing. Yeah. And leaving space for you to figure it out. Yeah.
It took a while. At first, I was like, I got to have it all figured. Like, my kids just left. Like, I woke up the next day. I was like, okay, I got to have it all figured out. And then I was just like, no, you don't.
No.
You don't.
And your vision can change.
Right.
Right? It gets to be flexible. It gets to be open-ended. Yeah. I had an interesting experience with a coach that I was working with who challenged me to write a list of 100 desires, like 100 things that I wanted. And it was a daunting task. But I actually, gave myself time and was able to do it. And it's like, wow, there are a lot of things in all, thinking across all the different parts of my life. Like, there's actually a lot of stuff that I want.
So is the next step for you to be working on accomplishing those things, or is it more of an exercise of just writing, like expressing them? You know
what? That's a great question. So I would say some of them, and they were, from like little things to giant, go to Asia kind of like big desires. And so some of them I've done and I could cross off the list, and some of them I haven't done yet, but I might do at some point. And some things I go back, I look at, 6 months later, and I go, I actually don't really want to do that anymore. Yeah. So yeah, it's an evolving. It's in progress. It's a list in progress.
100. That's a lot. Wow.
It's a lot, but I think there's, starting. You start with a few, and then the more you think about it, like it's nice to even imagine that like you could really expand into it. I mean, that helped me a lot. But yeah, I mean, I'm so happy that I'm so happy that this is what you're thinking about, and that you are figuring out some of those things and putting them into action. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And it's, it's challenging. Every day there's something new that it's really hard to plan anything for the future right now. Yes. Because every day there's news that comes down from the federal level that impacts what we're doing. And, we spend all this time to pivot, and then to find out, like I just, right before, you and I got on today, I found out that one of our funding sources that was eliminated, that now apparently the judge ordered a stay, and now all of that's on hold after we just spent, a week figuring out how to, write the letters to our subcontractors and telling them, and, just spent all this time on this closing down of the work, to now there's a stay, but I don't know what that means even. So it's really hard to plan. We do a lot of scenario planning, and every day it's something different to pivot and adjust to. So it's hard to. I mean, I felt this in COVID too, right? In the beginning, it was really hard to think. If you think back to the beginning of COVID in 2020, it was really hard to plan anything out for like a year out, because you just didn't know, right? Like there were so many unknowns, and it feels a little bit like that. Like it's really hard to do any kind of long-term visioning or planning, but. Again, at the same time, it's more important now than ever. Like this time requires that type of visioning and that like bold leadership, if we're gonna get through this, at least in the public health sense.
Well, you're a bold leader, and I'm glad to know you.
I'm glad we met, although actually we haven't actually met, right. But we've met virtually.
Not yet. It'll happen. It'll totally happen at some point. It'll happen. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Bronwyn. I might send you a text and say, "Can I see one of your paintings?"
Ooh,
we can share painting.
You want to see one? I have a couple here.
Oh, do you have? Okay.
I do. So hold on. Let me.
We'll have to describe it for our audio listeners, but
yes, I'll be right back. I painted this for my son, and I got it framed. Oh. Can you see that?
Oh,
the light is
wow.
The light is kind of bouncing off it weird, but
no, I can definitely see it. Can you describe it? It is beautiful. I'm so impressed. Can you describe it for our listeners?
Let's see. It is a Black woman with locks who I think she's smoking. I don't know what she's smoking, but it's something. And her eyes are closed. And to me, she just looks kind of like, I don't know, like maybe in the music industry, kind of like, kind of hip, maybe a singer, an artist of some type. But she's in deep thought, and she has a hat on, like a black satin hat on.
It's a really cool hat.
Yeah.
She's wearing a really cool hat.
So, but my son left it here, so I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Well, if your son doesn't want it, I'll take it. That's really incredible. I was not expecting you to just show me something quite so. Yeah, amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have a couple. When I started out, it was more like landscapes. I didn't do very well with them, but I do a lot of Black women, and flowers seem to be like the theme, like Black women and flowers. So I've got like 4 or 5
That's a
or
great
6
theme.
that I'm really proud of. The landscapes, not so much, but yeah.
I think that Black women and flowers is a great place to be.
It's happy. It's joy. It's what we need.
Yes, absolutely. And absolutely, you cannot say ever again that you are not creative and not an artist. No more of that. Okay, well, thank you so much. Really nice to talk to you, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you for reaching out to me. I've enjoyed this, and be courageous.
Be courageous. I am always inspired when I get to talk to Bronwyn. Bronwyn leads with clarity, conviction, and deep care, challenging old systems and building new pathways towards justice and well-being. I encourage you to connect with her to learn more about her and her courage. You can find the links to connect with her on the show notes page for this episode, located on our website, Courageous Public Health, under episode 6. Before you go, please take a moment and share this episode with a friend. I know you have people in your life who would appreciate hearing this conversation about courage. If you're listening in a podcast app, you can easily share this episode through a text or directly to social media. On the show notes page, you'll also find social media sharing buttons to make it super easy to spread the word. All right, everyone. Until next time, stay courageous. Thank you for listening to the Courageous Public Health Podcast. Visit courageouspublichealth.com to find the show notes for each episode and learn how to connect with us.